Alright guys, welcome to Formula 1 News. Day 4 of the first test in Barcelona. Everyone wants to know what is going on with the Aston Martin. The Mercedes continues to rack up incredible mileage and lap time, which could give Williams some confidence despite the drama of the recent days. But also, what is going on at Red Bull Powertrains? Their engine has run quite flawlessly in recent days, but according to rumours, it's actually not been as smooth sailing as they might have expected, and that could cause issues, especially for the main Red Bull team in the near future and Max Verstappen. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Some are concerned about a 2014 repeat right now. We'll discuss the likelihood of that in the coming minutes. Just firstly, this was an interesting image posted yesterday by Mohammed Ben Sulayem sitting down with none other than Christian Horner. So what might they be talking about? Could Horner be getting back into the sport? We think that's plausible with Alpine is the latest rumour. There's also been some talk about Ferrari. It's no secret that they might need a couple of new drivers soon. If this season doesn't go very well, not only might Hamilton decide to call it a day, but Charles Leclerc has been quite clear that it's now or never. And if Ferrari don't deliver, he will be finding his way to another team in the next couple of years. That means they need options. Behrman seems a very sensible promotion from Haas, but what else might they consider? Apparently, Gabriel Bortoleto is also on their list, as it were, if there is drama that results in some serious changes. Now let's talk about Williams for a couple of minutes, because it's a little confusing what's coming out of that Williams camp right now. They did confirm yesterday they will be in Bahrain for the first official test, but we know that this is a test in Barcelona, and if you see some of the laps that Mercedes are putting in, it's pretty clear this is not just a shakedown, right? So James Vowles says we've passed all the necessary tests, so the crash tests are done, we're ready to run in Bahrain. He made a little video talking about a few issues, saying that they're doing their virtual track test where they put the car on effectively the dyno and have it run as if it was doing an actual testing setup. So look, they have a real car. What's about the weight of the car though? Now, what I found interesting is that James Vowles understandably downplayed some of the concerns and said, okay, the crash tests are a bit of an issue. Yeah, we're not there in Barcelona. We will be in Bahrain. The car is built. It's okay. It runs and all this stuff. And then he, discussed some of the speculation. Now, we know that there were these rumours that they were massively overweight, but he said that as it stands, nobody knows the FW48 true weight at the moment, which is, I don't know, a little bit counterintuitive, because it's like, okay, the car's fine, the car's ready to go for Bahrain, no issues, but yet nobody knows what the car actually weighs. So, yeah, it's clearly not all sunshine and rainbows. I guess people are wondering, is this a strategy, right? Are they going to turn up to Bahrain with a few extra weeks of development with an absolute rocket ship? Is this the ultimate sandbag? I don't really buy that, but I guess we'll see in a couple of weeks when we go to Bahrain where Williams truly lie. But, of course, compared to Mercedes getting, 500 odd laps of running in, as we'll discuss in the coming minutes, not exactly ideal. Now, Racing Bulls, we will get back to them in the coming minutes here, but they did a bunch of laps yesterday, 117 laps Arvid Lindblad did in this Racing Bulls car. Again, you can see the massive intake, right? So that middle intake in the A, I believe that goes to the engine. The other components on the outside go more to just cooling on the outside. So it's all kind of part of the same thing. But yeah, it's a big intake, and it's turned a lot of heads in terms of the efficiency and how difficult that Red Bull engine is going to be to cool, especially because the main Red Bull car has very tightly packaged side pods and certainly a smaller intake than that. Red Bull, however, well, you can see some of those things I've mentioned in this image here. They're not driving today. That is because they're not on track in time with the parts that they need to have in order to replace the crash that Isaac Hadjar had a couple of days ago. So, yeah, Red Bull not be testing. After Hadjar's crash, they're still waiting for some parts to arrive, and the idea is that Max can hit the track on Friday for a full day of running, no issues, it all goes smoothly. But are they going to be able to turn their engine up as much as Mercedes have been able to do? Now, the McLaren has hit the track as well. As I say, Mercedes are the key talking point for a number of reasons. Yet their integration with the chassis and the engine should be stronger than other teams. They were talking a big game. They've been posting a big game on social media. The lap times absolutely agree with that assessment, as we'll discuss. Again, how much do the lap times matter? Not necessarily. All we know for sure is that Mercedes are a long way ahead of the other teams in terms of their program, right? They might not be a long way ahead of the other teams in terms of their actual car performance. That remains kind of unclear. But in terms of getting through their program and the learnings that they've been able to achieve, there's kind of no doubt right now Mercedes are ahead of the pack. Now, Lando Norris says, pretty amazing to be number one. It's the first time I really get to see it on the car and all this stuff. The car is not papaya just yet. We actually did have, this is Oscar Piastri, taken to the track today for the very first time. Some interesting things were noted on this car. So they've got this interesting actuator that people were talking about. The front flap actuator mechanism in these rods appears to be inside the nose with two tie rods connected to the flap. So you can kind of see what's going on here. This appears to be what McLaren are doing with their front wing actuator. So it's interesting. We've not seen other teams go for that approach just yet. How much performance advantage will it gather? That's a different question. Lando also gives a few thoughts on the state of the cars, really, and what it feels like to drive as the reigning world champion. It's pretty different. It's not a huge step. I think it's a step slower in terms of quartering speeds, but in terms of acceleration and straight line speeds, it probably feels quicker than it did last year. You get to 340, 350 kph, a bit quicker than we did in previous years. It's a bit more of a challenge in various places, which is a good thing, but then you have a bit more to understand from the battery, the power unit. All of those things are in some ways more complicated and just different, and whenever something's different, it always takes a bit of time to figure it out, but that's what these days are for. We got some good understanding in. The feeling's different, but it still feels like a McLaren, still feels powerful, and all this. So Norris doesn't say an awful lot, but it was interesting to hear his early comments on the McLaren, given that we've not really talked an awful lot about it so far. Most of the talk has been about this car, to be honest. Now, this is interesting. Kimi Antonelli behind the wheel here. We talked yesterday a little bit about the rake on these cars and, well, the ride height at the rear compared to the ride height at the front. Now, it appeared on yesterday's images that, if anything, Mercedes were running lower rake than many of their rivals. But actually, based on this image, it looks like that's a lot of rake. It looks like. Now, again, it could be angle dependent, difficult to say, but it does appear that that's quite a substantial triangle in that window. And yeah, interesting compared to what Mercedes had typically done. Maybe they're messing around with things. Maybe they've just got so much data, so much understanding, so much confidence. They're just, let's just see how the car goes. We run it with a higher rear ride height. Is it better, worse? Who knows? Might as well test it. Everything's working flawlessly, it seems, apart from that right now. And Antonelli, shortly after this, put in the fastest lap of the weekend so far with a 1:17.0. Now, as I say, lap times aren't massively relevant. This does feel reasonably quick. The fastest, of course, the qualifying time from last year was like a 1:11, but these cars are going to be several seconds a lap slower, at least 2 to 3 seconds a lap slower than last year's cars. Maybe more than that. It depends on the circuit, possibly. That's kind of what we're expecting, certainly the first year of these regulations. These regs may be able to get back there, but it's expected they'll be at least a good few seconds off the pace anyway. Different conditions, colder conditions, it's not going to be the same as in a qualifying setup. The fastest lap in last year's Grand Prix was in the 1:15s. The fastest lap that Mercedes did in last year's Grand Prix was in the 1:17s. So that just gives you a context of kind of where these lap times sit. What's relevant as it stands is that nobody has got anywhere near these type of times yet, any other team other than Mercedes. Again, engine mode, that could be a key factor here. Mercedes might be more confident turning up their engine than the other teams are, because these are clearly like qualifying sim laps in this type of lap time range. What was also talked about with the Mercedes, and actually, yeah, F1 Guy Down pointed out that last year's fastest lap from Merc was a 1:17.2. These are the times they're doing now, so again, you can't say too much. What apparently was terrifying, as we talked about yesterday, was that George did a stint, and maybe this is continuing today, who knows, but apparently he did a stint earlier in the weekend, like a race run stint, and his lap times were 1:20, 1:20, 1:20, 1:20, absolutely metronomic for about 30 laps. And, okay, I don't have all the lap times to look at here. That's not particularly publicly available. But that apparently was what was scaring the opposition, that it wasn't these, headline lap times. It was more that they did a couple of race runs, and the level of reliability and durability and consistency of those times was particularly scary at this point in the season. It's only a test. It is what it is. Couple of other things to note. This is a hole in Mercedes' front nose, and some other teams have this as well, but on Mercedes it's quite clearly marked in the green. This seems to be their way of adjusting the front wing, but the front wing is very interesting on the Mercedes, and I still believe they're the only team to have shown us this so far, that the front nose is mounted to the second plane, not the first, and yeah, it's still going to be a talking point, this why they've done it, because on the Ferrari, both of these elements can move. On the Mercedes, only this one moves, and you'd think you're giving something up there, but clearly they must be gaining something back as well, otherwise they would have done what the other teams had done. The guys that are there at the track, you guys know that there's like these 3 Spanish lads that are on the hills in Barcelona watching everything this weekend. And, well, they have a few things to say about it. You can see and hear how they're already pushing the engine hard. You can see in turn 11 or 12, they take the curb, basically. The others don't do it. I repeat, they are way ahead right now. And goes on to say that from the hills, you can appreciate the difference. They do more laps. They go more to the limit. Everything looks very promising. So, yeah, the Mercedes, as Victor says, does whatever she wants at the moment. Now, the Ferrari, not such a clean day. Hamilton went for a spin. He was also clearly struggling here with the car. You can see that, these guys are sitting at turn 10, the end of like the second sector, very tricky corner. And Hamilton's coming through this corner, and you can see that he's, losing the rear end a little bit. Again, it's like, it is what it is. And if you're not pushing the car, you're not learning an awful lot. He did actually have a pretty nice spin as well, I think at the same corner, different angle here, but as he comes out the corner on the exit, he just loses the rear of the car, a bit too much power down, nice little 360 pirouette, and continues on his way. So it's not like he hit the barriers or anything, right? I know people were talking about this like, oh my god, it's over, the Ferrari is terrible. It's like, no, what can we take away from this? Not all that much. But it looks like the Ferrari is right now not the easiest car to drive. We've not seen, as it stands, any of the Mercedes guys have such similar predicaments. But the real predicament which has been emerging behind the scenes today is actually at Red Bull Powertrains. So De Kester describes how their engine is battling greater overheating issues than they expected. Now, you can see with this airbox on the Red Bull, on the Racing Bulls, that clearly that was maybe expected to an extent, but on the Red Bull, they do seemingly have quite aggressive tight packaging, and they are, as a result, needing to make some adjustments there. So this is an excerpt from the article, I'll leave a link down below. Officially, there's only praise for the power unit produced in Milton Keynes, which completed 393 laps in 4 individual days of testing. The work done by RBPT has been impressive, and as a complete rookie in F1, completing almost 200 laps on the first day, Russell was giving them some credit as well. It's impressive what they've done, no doubt about that. They've brand new power unit manufacturer, they've produced an engine which seems to be pretty reliable so far. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Auto Racer can reveal that in the first few days, not everything went according to plan. The British power unit was suffering from excessive overheating compared to expectations, forcing the engineers to adopt conservative cooling solutions, especially on the exit, presumably on like the rear of the car, where the cooling louvre was possibly opened up to the maximum. Now, they are currently in Barcelona in January. You would think if there was any time of year where the engine would probably be okay, this might be it, right? So if you're going to go to Qatar, or certainly even Melbourne in the near future, get pretty toasty there as well. So yeah, there will be Grand Prix at the start of the season that tests a power unit, especially if it's liable to overheating. You might not expect that to really happen in Barcelona right now, and for understandable reasons. But as the season goes on, this is going to be an issue. Now, the Racing Bulls clearly were prepared for this to some degree because they've got a lot of cooling on that car. The Red Bull, certainly less so. And as a result, can they run their engine as hard? We're seeing some of the lap times Mercedes are putting in, and we'll see more in a second. Those are not lap times done on slow engine modes. The other teams likely are still not turning up their engines because of a lack of confidence. Probably that's true to a certain degree with Red Bull as well. And if they've got to open up a load of cooling on their car, that's going to add drag. It's certainly not optimal, right? So, yes, intrigued your thoughts on that in the comments. It's not unexpected that that Racing Bulls are having some issues here and it's not all smooth sailing. But yeah, I think there was a feeling the first couple of days that, wow, the Red Bull car looks quick. Hadjar was doing some good lap times and also looks reliable. So, you know, what bad is happening here? But apparently it's not all so clear cut. The morning session today, Antonelli and Mercedes again topped the numbers of lap times. Antonelli did 90 laps, Hamilton did 87 laps, Lawson with 64, then Piastri, and then Perez was on the track as well in the Cadillac. Then, though, the afternoon session got underway and George Russell got in the car. George Russell also says Mercedes focus a lot on long runs and is now going to do some qualifying runs as long as the weather is dry. That's exactly what we're going to see. Now, people have been waiting all afternoon to see the Aston Martin. It arrived on track, well, it arrived yesterday. We thought they might be able to get it out this morning, but they weren't able to do so. It's going to be totally black because they've not presented the official livery yet, so they can't actually reveal any of that, so it's just got to be totally blacked out. Aston Martin has also warned the other teams they will do so with a speed limit when they first hit the track. And then Natchez went on to say that there was white smoke coming out of the pit lane, so there was some concern about what was happening there. Who knows where this was from? Of course, could be something else, but people were saying, oh, could it be Ferrari? Could it be Aston Martin, right? What's going on there? Get back to Aston in just a couple of seconds. But Mercedes say as of yesterday, they're already ahead of where they were intending and hoping, expecting to be. And I mean, I thought this is a remarkable assessment that the only track time they've lost, really, is when other teams are causing red flags. Like, that's the only issue that's been causing them trouble, is other teams having issues. They themselves have been practically flawless. So then Russell went out there, already started banging in the laps, did a 1:17.1, which was a tenth of what Antonelli did. Then he went below a 117 with a 116.9, and as of the latest update we have, he's now just set a 116.6. So nobody else is anywhere near this right now. And yeah, it is what it is. But it is, I think ominous is the right word. Charles Leclerc, he improved his time to a 118.4. Respectable for sure, but nowhere near where Mercedes are. I mean, Russell's 2 seconds up the road. Again, it's only testing, so it is what it is. But there's no doubt that Mercedes have been the impressive force of the last few days, and they just continue to bang in the laps. Now, Aston Martin, where's their car? They apparently are working flat out in the garage to get it on track today. Now, only a couple of hours left in the session here, but Jesus does say the car's about to come out on the track. People are wondering, is there like an integration issue between the car and the chassis and the engine, all this stuff, getting it ready to go? Well, we do have our first images of the AMR 26. Again, it's fully blacked out. Here it is with the Honda engine in play. And as it stands, it's far too early to really read all that much on this. Again, people are looking immediately at some of these first shots of this piece at the back of the car here, this kind of cooling out there. What's going on there? Haven't really seen much like that on the others, but you can see the Aston Martin logo on the side of it. So this is the AMR 26. The side pod shape, it's kind of difficult to analyze from this angle, but it looks like much more of a kind of downwashing side pod concept rather than what we have seen some of the other teams go for. Again, what does the front suspension look like? Who knows? But this is our first look at the AMR 26 anyway. Hopefully we can discuss it tomorrow in a lot more detail with some better images that may or may not be getting revealed. So intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.